Welcome to my ultimately brilliant bestest about an elf review. And why not combobulate yourself over to that like and subscribe buttons and hit them. Nice it. Okay, so as you could probably guess, this is not just your normal, average, everyday kind of story-based game. In fact, this one has like visual novel elements, it kind of has a bit of point and clickery to it, and even some battling, kind of. The story element pretty well is long ago elves could be found all over the place, but not anymore, who knew? Those humans no longer have time for elves and, well, basically the magical world has kind of gone to pot and basically monsters lurk in every corner, or at least most of them. And this basically leads us to our main character, and you'll be telling the story to Dido, I believe it's correctly pronounced, who in return starts paying you in gummy bears, but she's kind of finicky about her stories, as you tend to have this incredible habit of, well, making stuff up, or stretching one's truth of it anyway. Now, where I'm not actually going to spoil the story too much for you, this really is actually a weird but kind of compelling really story and, well, environment that you're in. You kind of travel to, well, in the story, strange places, meeting weird creatures and things. In fact, some of them are actually quite weird that they'll probably even make Alice blush in weirdness. And yes, I mean that, Alice. Basically, Elftopia is coming, and, well, for whatever that actually means, it's not really known fully by those who actually speak it. And trust me, it's all truthier than true, if you get my meaning. There are actually 4 different layers to find, but it's best to start at the, well, first area first. And yes, I am deliberately making this as weird as I can. Probably not even weirder than I should be making it for this game. In fact, as you go along, you start realizing that, well, they're going to use lots and lots of weird-ass names and words like fabtasmic proportions. Love the made-up words, don't you? Kind of reminds me of when I was a child, if you like. As you make your way through the story, you'll basically be gaining gummy bears as you go along, and obviously getting gummy bears off Dido for, telling a good story. Remember, it's truthier. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, you will also come upon a companion, because who wants to travel through a weird-ass story like this on your own? Not me, I tell you. And so please enter your love interest, well, the cat, Roland, a white, lovely level 1 hero who has a very dry sense about him. I'm not quite sure whether that's deliberate or not, considering cats do not like water. Remember that, please. As you make your way through the actual game or story, you'll encounter creatures out there. Some that, well, you can interact and talk to and, not try to hurt you with. And some you have to, well, battle-ish. And I have to say here that there's no real sense of, worry about being defeated or anything like that, as mostly everything isn't that harmful, and when it is, you kind of go back and can do that said bit again, sort of, if you like. Anywho, let's talk about Magiballs. Well, Magiballs are kind of crystal vision revealing hidden truths thing. Basically, you get this crystal, and in order to beat the actual creatures you meet, you will have to pick or work out what the actual element, if you like, that they are weak to. And you'll see in a crystal, sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. You just need to decide and pick the correct one. Simples! And most of the time you will be entering certain areas and basically having to defeat all the actual creatures or monsters within that area. Fantabulous, eh? And while the story actually goes on in these areas, you will be toing and throwing back and forth to Dido for little interactions there, as well as little other pause and kind of like, this is how the story goes segments to, I don't know, fill little gaps out, I guess. There are segments that you have to make actual choices by, well, clicking the choice that you think it's going to be, and again, there's no actual threat of the game ending because you've chosen the wrong decision. Most of the time it is go back and redo it. As well as this, there are like friendly monsters out there and even Monster Shop. Great. That was also really confusing what happened in that. Noggin. There's a word you don't hear very often these days, eh? The story was actually quite funny for the most part, but as you actually progressed, it kind of like started getting a little bit samey here and there. You kind of like different areas, but everything was more or less the same, and you kind of like did the same through the most of the actual game. I think if the story wasn't as wacky and weird that it actually is, then I think you probably would have given up a long time ago. In fact, between its like 6.5 hour gameplay, it really starts to feel like it should have technically ended a little bit before then. And yes, probably would have benefited highly if it was slightly shorter. Graphically, I really did actually enjoy this. It's kind of like it got that weird Alice in Wonderland stroke. I don't know what you'd call this, but it's weird, it's wacky. I do like the character animations and mostly everything, the creatures and all as a whole are, or the enemies are like people dressed up as, well, sharks and the like. Sound wise, absolutely brilliant. All the different sounds, the music, things like that, just spot on to what it should be. And yeah, it really did add a lot to the actual atmosphere of the game as you played on. The unfortunate thing about games like this is I definitely think that not everyone will appreciate this sort of thing. In fact, there's probably people watching this video or probably even switched off and not bothering with the rest because they think this looks crap and it's not my bag. And I really do think that a lot of people will think that about this, which is kind of unfortunate really. And also the gameplay is kind of non-taxing, which I suppose is a good and a bad thing really. I don't think you'll ever feel stressed or anything playing this game, and yeah, it's kind of like just relaxing, go with the flow, just be interested in the story. The good. It's kind of like one of those games that you just play because it's fun. That's it. Fun. I love the actual style of the game, the look, the sound really interests me. And yeah, the story as a whole was actually quite interesting and kept me going for the most part of it. The bad. This definitely will not appeal to a good few people. And yeah, I think it definitely went on a little bit too long. The score. This is kind of a hard one for me, and it's one of those that I can only give my own judgment upon. I really found it difficult to review because of, well, what it is. So I think for me, I'm going to give it a 3+ out of 5 because it is and was entertaining, and yeah, it had me gripped for the most part. And so what are your actual thoughts upon About an Elf? Will you be picking it up or not? Leave it down in the comments because that's where they actually belong. And as for my alternative, well, I'm going to be suggesting Isolumus, another weird game, not quite the same, but I've not really seen much that's the same as this on the Nintendo Switch. But it's kind of clay animation, it's got a very weird way and gameplay aspects to it, and it kind of tells a story. Well, if you know something better, please leave it down in the comments as well. And thank you for joining me. Hit that like and subscribe button to be kept up to date with more content. And even, why not come and join us in our community Discord, where we like to chat about our favourite things. That's right, the Nintendo Switch, among other things, because life is better when we switch together.